Hi guys, welcome to another LivinginSAtv podcast. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Riaad Moosa. He is one of the biggest comedians here in South Africa, and we're going to find out how he started and all that. So make sure you stay tuned because this video once again will blow your mind. Hi guys, welcome to another LivinginSAtv podcast, aka ZA Entrepreneurial. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Riaad Moosa, and he doesn't need any presentations. One of the biggest comedians here in South Africa. Hi Riaad, how are you?
Fine, how are you doing, bro? Thank you for having me.
It's only a pleasure. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. So today, guys, I was really curious about to know basically how Riaad started, how he came up to be, to become a comedian in a very tough industry. So we're going to learn more about Riaad. We have a few questions to him, and are you ready, Riaad?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. You're born ready for this already.
I was
Okay.
born ready. Born ready for this.
Okay, perfect. So let's go to our first question. The first question is, you are a qualified medical doctor. What made you change direction and go into comedy?
Yes, I always love also how people say I'm a qualified medical doctor. Is there any other type? Are there unqualified medical doctors? Maybe there are. It's fine. I only completed half my degree. Can I call myself a medical doctor? No. Okay, listen here. I originally completed my degree like many years ago. I think it was 2001. I think it was. And I never planned not to do medicine. It was always my ambition to be a doctor because both my parents are doctors. My father's an orthopedic surgeon. My mother's a general practitioner. And I always wanted to be a doctor, right? But my dad always used to say to me, Riaad, you can do whatever you want on this earth as long as you become an orthopedic surgeon first. So no pressure there. No pressure. Just, complete our medical degree, then you're fine. You can do whatever you want to. And I didn't become orthopedic surgeon, which would have taken another 5 extra years of specialization. So I don't know if he's disappointed. But I never planned not to do medicine. I just started doing stand-up comedy after 4th year medicine as an extracurricular activity. I saw some stand-up comedians performing at some sort of university event, and it was the first time I was actually exposed to stand-up comedy, and I absolutely loved it. And I just started doing it as a extracurricular. But if you also back up a little bit, it wasn't my first foray into performing. I started performing in Standard 7. I used to do magic. I went to this place called the College of Magic in Lansdowne Road, Claremont. And the College of Magic was a place, where you learned a whole lot of, magic tricks. I loved David Copperfield and a lot of these other comedian magicians. I ended up liking the comedy magic more, right, than the actual magic. But I didn't know there was such a thing as comedy, like stand-up comedy. I wasn't really exposed to it much. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that I appreciated and loved the comedic side of things more than the magic. But I didn't know that until I actually went through this whole process of doing magic, learning how to perform. And eventually, when I saw stand-up comedy after 4th year medicine, many years later, I knew this is the thing I actually liked. And I started doing it. I started actually performing comedy magic with other comedians because I had actually prepared as a comedy magician. And I've been doing little shows as a comedy magician for many years to make some extra money even while I was doing medicine. And then when I got exposed to stand-up comedy, I started performing with comedians, and I very quickly got rid of my bag of tricks and started trying to do comedy sets. And that's how I actually fell in love with stand-up comedy. Very soon I got rid of my bag of tricks and I just started doing comedy. And then I went back to doing medicine. I actually took a break after fourth year medicine, and that's the year that I found stand-up comedy. And then I went back to complete my medical degree. I did my internship, community service, and then, you know, I actually thought I'd just take a little bit of a break and work on a television show, because there was opportunities for us to work on a TV show. And this was just like around, you know, post 1994. And it's into a different time in South Africa's history where all of a sudden, you know, like, because in like pre-1994, I was in high school. And, you know, we didn't have the vote. And then all of a sudden, like 1994 comes, I go to university. And it's during that time when all things started changing. All these different voices emerged, you know, and stand-up comedy became a thing and became more diverse. Because before that, it was predominantly like white folks performing stand-up comedy. And you never had all these different voices. And I did the performing. I started performing with all these other comedians. And I had the opportunity to perform on the Pure Munati show, which was sort of a sketch comedy show, which was very popular at the time among the urban youth. And I was just going to do it for fun. You know, I had completed my degree, I finished my community service and my internship. So I thought I'd just do that for a little bit and then go back to medicine. But one thing led to another, followed the path of least resistance, and now I find myself 20 years later in a completely different field, and talking to you. So it is never a planned thing to become a comedian, but I love my job.
No, I can see, because look, I've been following your work also for a bit also, and like I told you, I was last month in one of your comedy shows via Zoom, which is amazing. You know, it was a lot of people for the comedy sketches, and also the all the guests that you have. One was in India, another one was in America, I guess, and another one was in South Africa. So it was really, really interesting. You come up with this blend of different people in different places, so can also make a little bit of cultural, you know, jokes about their countries, and it was a very good show. It was a very good show. And if you guys are watching, please make sure you go to Riaad's show online on Zoom. Yes.
That's the benefit. The one benefit of doing virtual shows is you can actually get comedians from all over the world. That is definitely a benefit, because generally the virtual shows are difficult because you can't hear the laughs a lot of the times. For comedians, that's very tough, because laughter is actually a very social behavior. You're actually 30 times more likely to laugh when you're with other people than when you're by yourself, right? I don't know if you notice, like, how many times have you seen something funny on digital, right? Mm-hmm. And then you type LOL, but you're not even laughing out loud. That's weird, right? Like, you type LOL, but in reality, it's like, you know, just maybe a little bit of air comes out of your nose, right? But you're typing laugh out loud. And the reason for that is laughter is a social behavior. We laugh when we are with other people. Also, it's contagious. It spreads from person to person. But so is COVID, which is why we're doing these virtual shows. And it's very difficult for us to perform without laughs, because it's such an important part of stand-up comedy. It's like, I tell people, it's like swimming without water. Yes. That's how it feels like to me, you know, because I'm on stage, I got the best equipment. Like, imagine I'm ready, I'm in a pool, right? An empty pool, essentially, right? I got the best swimming cap, the best goggles, the best speedo. I'm all oiled up, ready, and I'm doing all the moves, right? But there's no water, so I feel like an idiot. I'm a dude doing the moves like in an empty swimming pool. This is how it feels. But I mean, we have to sort of pivot and be flexible and try and engage with a new medium. And I've developed certain tools to make it better and to make it more enjoyable also for the audience. But I'm learning as I go along. All I know is I want to embrace the new medium. But I do really look forward to things opening up and for us to developing immunity so we can go back to somewhat of a normal situation. I know things are not always going to go exactly back to being normal, but I look forward to the time when we can all sit in a room together and spread laughter.
Perfect. Now I remember when you were doing the show, that initial part that you start the show and you're still warming up the audience and everyone still has their camera off. Many people don't even put their camera on, and then the comments. So it must be a very interesting social experiment. Let's put it this way, because I found it really interesting to watch.
Yes. So also it's like a social experiment. You're figuring out what is the best way to do it, because like I've also figured out that audio, it's just the sound that's the problem, because the sound can be a big distraction. Because like on Zoom you can spotlight a person, so you can create a stage in a sense, and people's focus on me like as the primary center of focus. Visually you can see it better, but audio, it's very difficult to spotlight the audio. The way it is, right, is like I'm handing out, if this was a real life show, it would be like I'm handing out microphones to every person in the audience. So then all of a sudden you start to hear everything people are saying. So recently I've asked people, if they have the cameras off, not to turn their mics on, because that's like, for me, like, someone's haunting the Zoom meeting. If I can, if I hear them by mistake, it feels like that, instead of going, ooh, though, I will hear, Mohammed, can you just warm my food, please? Warm my food. Like, just go check if the electricity is, like, you're just hearing everything that people are saying, and it can be very distracting and frustrating. So the main issue with these Zoom shows, the problem is the audio, and how you deliver it to create sort of a fun experience for the people also watching. But I'm learning all the time, bro. I'm learning all the time.
I understand. And no, it's very funny because I'm getting all these flashbacks, but I promise you guys have to see it because it's unbelievable. What people do on the the stuff that you listen is just too funny. I remember you giving examples of people doing all sorts of stuff, but I want people to see the show to actually understand what we mean with this.
Yes.
Let's go to the second question. How did your family feel with you changing direction, professional direction, so drastically?
Well, look here, I didn't do it quickly. So I've always like, there was a certain point where I was always completing what I promised my parents I would do. So when I took a break after fourth year medicine, it was just a sabbatical. I thought I'd take a year and study something else for a year. Like, I'm going to learn Xhosa, that'll improve my communication skills. I could become a better doctor. I thought I'd do some, economics, just so I have a better understanding of the world, and that was my intention. And learn Afrikaans, also a way to communicate better. So I thought I'd do these 3 courses for a year and, explore the arts, because I just had this voice at the back of my head, like, I need to do this, but I always told my father, no. He was an orthopedic surgeon and a specialist hand surgeon. I said that, I'm going to go back, and I did go back. I completed my degree. I did my internship. I did my community service. I worked for a while as a doctor. Just when a big opportunity came around for me to work on this television show, I took that opportunity, and there was no financial risk to me. I never did anything, where it seemed like my future was risky. Like, I never confronted my parents, one day, Mom, Dad, I just want to be funny. I don't want to do this, and then I go like sleep in my car for 6 months in Johannesburg, and I wait tables to try and, make it in showbiz. No, it was never like that. I was working as a medical doctor. I was working like during the day as a doctor and doing stand-up comedy at night. that's what I would do, and I did some silly things, in the sense I would do shows at night, and I used to drive back to Alberton. I used to work in Johannesburg, and I used to drive back from these shows in Melville to Alberton, and so many times I would wake up driving, because I was so tired, but something compelled me to do stand-up comedy because I needed to be back. I needed to drive late at night, and I couldn't just hang out with the other comedians, because the other comedians would hang out to the early hours of the morning doing Lord knows what. But I would just do the show, and then I would essentially go home because I had ward rounds the next day, So I worked as a doctor all the time, and when I had the opportunity to do the television show also, the money was fine, and it was comparable to what I was getting as a doctor. And when I started doing bigger shows, because so many comedy shows were happening at that time and comedy was going through a boom, the money was reasonably good. So I was never in a state where financially it was risky. So then, my parents were more amenable to me doing it because I wasn't putting myself at risk, from an income standpoint. So I was just working really hard to do both, my comedy and my medicine.
Perfect.
And then when I decided, I never decided not to do it, like the medicine. I just comedy, more and more opportunities opened up with comedy. And I just kept on doing it.
And became your second nature, basically. Something that you love, that you're passionate about.
So my parents never had to have a talk. However, it's difficult was difficult now because, the joke is with the pandemic, all my shows were cancelled, right? All the shows, and all of a sudden there are no more events. So my income disappeared like that, right? So we go, okay, but that's fine, Riaad. When a pandemic, you're a medical doctor, you got a medical degree. So that's cool, right? Yeah. I haven't done medicine for 20 years. So I can't remember anything, bro. I haven't done it for a while. I'm pretty sure my advice is not cutting edge, Mm-hmm. So that was the issue, But I am actually, during this time, I've decided to actually collate my two careers. I've started this initiative called The Best Medicine, which is about, creating and engaging in healing practices, using laughter, right, as a tool for healing, and, engaging with a lot of little therapies that you can do on a daily basis, right, and incorporating it into your life so you can get a little bit of stability, from a healing perspective, because people are very stressed out. There's a lot of mental health issues, and society is very chaotic. So I thought, bring in your healing into a realm that you can control, and engage with these little healing practices. For example, like laughter yoga, laughter therapy, right? And things that you can do on a daily basis to promote your healing. So you can create some stability in your home and within sort of the realm that you can control.
Perfect. Thank you for making this type of let's say it's because the work that you develop, around your community and bringing people a better way of life, let's say it, in terms of therapy and laughter, like you say, it's actually the best remedy. I completely agree with you. But let's go to our next question. Well, this I think you didn't regret, but did you actually sometimes regret the decision you have done, or not really?
There's opportunity. There were times when it was very hard with the stand-up comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I don't generally regret things because I've my approach is that, life is generally a learning experience, and sometimes certain failures lead you on to learn new things. So the regrets I have is based on when I was a doctor. I feel there were certain things where I made errors, regarding certain patients' care, You know, there was like sad things that I engaged with, like I couldn't save this I think this 3-year-old because I wasn't sufficiently trained, right? I didn't have also the support. You know, I was overwhelmed at work and I was the only person on call, you know, and I didn't have the expertise to save that particular person. Certain those are the regrets that I have, although I don't blame myself, but I feel a sadness about not being able to do that. But I don't have any regrets in terms of, you know, decisions or paths that I've chosen. I don't regret engaging with stand-up, because stand-up comedy is my bliss. You know, like there's nothing I love more than writing a joke and performing it for the first time in front of a live audience, because the first time you never know if a joke is going to work, and when you can elicit that laugh and you can hear the people laughing, you know, it really is therapeutic. And the second time is not that great because I've made them laugh with this before, but the first time is absolutely amazing. So I love doing stand-up comedy, and I would do it even if it weren't my primary source of income, if it weren't like my, you know, my main career. I would still love doing stand-up.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes, you know what, failures are always our best friends to achieve anything you have and you want in life. Just carry on doing. In some way, we get there. If you,
Yes, and we learn. The idea is to learn. So with a failure, you don't see the failure as something that is going to defeat you. It's more like a clue. I always say a failure is a clue to how you could be better, because you don't really learn from your successes. You know, your ego grows with your successes, but you only learn when you make a mistake. It's like when babies learn to walk, they take a step and then they fall down, and they take another step, they fall down, and then all the time you are learning, and eventually you start walking. And when you start walking, the baby usually laughs, and the people around them laugh because they're having joy, because they are mastering something, right? Just that whole process, you are mastering something, and that allows you to have joy. But you would never be able to master something if you didn't fail. The key is, you would never be able to master something if you didn't fall over. The key is to get up again and learn from what happened when you fall over. And if you do that over and over, eventually you'll walk, eventually you'll run, you know? And that's just a process of becoming better at something. So just keep on doing the things and learning from mistakes, and keep getting up.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Do you see yourself doing anything else besides stand-up comedy?
I see myself doing some form of medicine and some form of healing and wellness initiative that sort of informs my comedy. So I want to keep on doing stand-up comedy forever, as long as I can, as long as the Almighty allows me to, and opportunities allow me to. I want to continue doing it. But I also like to do it in a way that is healing to people. You know, I think that's what I've realized. I wanted to be and somehow collate and mix my two careers, so I can actually maybe do wellness videos in a funny way, or actually just really focus on the healing aspect of humor and laughter. And I think I just like to sort of bring that together, you know, so I can have a sort of a clearer vision and intention. But I don't see myself doing anything else really besides what I'm doing at the moment. I'd like to do it for as long as possible, and hopefully inspire others to do the same. That's what I'd like to do.
Perfect. Thank you. So, how do you get your material for comedy sketches? Where you gonna get the inspiration?
Predominantly, it's from my life. It's from my experiences. I use myself as a template for my comedy. It's about like my outlook in life, about the way that I see the world, and my experiences. So I talk about myself as a doctor, as a married man, as a father of four, and at the same time I talk about, you know, how I feel about the world around me. So a lot of the material is personal. The way in which I communicate is a very personal way. And the reason you also do that is, if you are very personal, very few people can actually copy you and take your material. If I'm just predominantly doing jokes about things that everybody notices, about things that are completely out there, then people can take my jokes. But if everything, all the things I talk about is very personal to me, right, and it's about my life, you can't really have people taking that as easily, you know? I mean, I'm a doctor, I'm a comedian, I'm a Muslim, you know, I have 4 children, you know, I live in South Africa. These are all like very unique aspects. And if I talk about myself in that way, then, you know, people get to know me as a person, and you get to be very unique. And then people also can't sort of, you know, steal your jokes.
Understood, fully understand. Because like I say, everyone has their own experience, their own empiric experience, let's put it this way. So of course you can't copy that, because you're not going to be on the backstage or living someone else's life in order to steal that material and trying to do it their own way. Now I completely get you. So let me know one thing. We as content creators, because we are content creators, is, do you do your own thing, or do you employ people to do your editing of your videos, or you do everything by yourself?
Hey, but look here. I wish I could employ people, but I'm a psychopath in the sense that I tend to do things on my own, and I do delegate, but I'm not good at it. I'm not good at delegating because, like, and I think it's the curse of being a stand-up comedian, because you are there alone on stage, and you know, you have full control over what you say and how you say it, and it's very difficult sometimes to collaborate because other people don't share your vision. But I don't delegate. I do micromanage. I do a lot of things by myself, but I don't necessarily think it's the right thing to do. And I think I can get better at delegating and getting other people to at least help me, so that you know, I can focus on the creative aspects of things, because, you know, just the technical aspects of editing and also the social media and posting and all of those things can get very time consuming, and then you're spending more time with the admin of things and less time with the creative side of things. And it's different caps, it's different hats that you have. You know, a creative mind requires some space. It requires opportunities, or for you to flow and you to look at different things and be inspired and rest and come back to a problem and go away from it and write a little bit more and edit. That's what the creative process is, right? Whereas a lot of content creation requires a little bit more of a methodical attitude. So I think somehow trying to balance the two is important, because you can't just be creative and take years and years to come up with your masterpiece, you know. We don't live in that world anymore. The idea is like, so putting out the content and then learning from the things that you did well and that you did badly in the piece of content, and then just hopefully the next video will be better, you know. So I definitely think I can be better at you know, delegating and giving other people.
I completely understand you.
Not good at it.
I completely understand you. So another question that I have is, before the show, so how do you practice for it? Are you extremely nervous when you start something, or you just go with the flow? Do you write everything in a piece of paper? Are you going around the house to read your jokes to yourself? Do you read your jokes to your wife, for example, to get a feedback? How does that happen? How do you prepare
I
yourself?
used I used to do that a while ago. I used to write, I used to repeat the things in conversation, everything that you're talking about. But a lot of that happens in the beginning when you're getting used to what you're doing and writing things down and following through a process and being very scripted and very particular about things. But I've found that it's better to speak it out naturally and learn through the process of doing it. Um, that works much better. So these days, I generally have ideas and concepts in my mind, and I will write those things down so I don't forget it. And then I would try to work it out on stage in front of an audience, because the audience will let you know what is interesting and what grabs people's attention. Now, these days, it's much more difficult to do that because, you don't have the instantaneous feedback of an audience. So the way in which I have to do it now is to create the content, right, and put it out there at least, and then wait for the feedback and see how people respond to it. But in the past, what I would do was I would get ideas and I would actually work it out on stage. And I think that is a much more powerful way to do stand-up comedy.
We understand. Okay, next question. Um, let's say this is actually a very interesting one, which is, what are people's reactions when they meet you in person?
They think they think, why am I so quiet? Because I'm actually an introvert. I'm an introverted comedian. There are some extroverted comedians who like to be the center of attention and they're the life of the party. I'm the observer comedian. I'm the quiet guy generally, and I'm observing and I'm seeing things and I'm analyzing things. That's my nature, right? Although these days I almost have to put on a show for people in a sense, and make sure I'm slightly entertaining, even though that's not my nature. I don't necessarily feel the need to do that, but I do it because people expect it of me. But people are surprised that I'm actually shy, and a lot of people also are surprised, who know me from when I was younger, are surprised that I became a comedian, because I've generally been a quiet guy, studious guy, most of my life. So then they go, he's funny. When that happened, when I started doing stand-up comedy, then they would just see me be funny on stage. And then off stage, not really interested in engaging or being funny or anything like that.
So, how lucrative is stand-up comedy in South Africa? Do you ever have like shows overseas? What's the difference?
Well, look, yeah, these days it's difficult. I'm fortunate in that I have a name in stand up, and I'm relatively well known. So even though like live shows aren't allowed, I still do a lot of corporate work. So corporate shows continue. People do Zoom shows. People do award shows online. So very often I get called to do that. But obviously, it's much less lucrative now than it used to be, because you can't really do massive events. And the online events, they aren't as popular because it's a new medium, and you're trying to figure out how to make sure that people actually enjoy it. And that's why I'm also inspired to develop that as also some way in which I can do comedy in a different form. But the corporate industry, there's a lot of sort of income to be made. And there's also, if you have, a reasonable level of fame, you can do a lot of live performances, and then it can be quite lucrative. And then there are opportunities with movies, which I didn't really venture into because I've got a lot of kids. I've got 4 kids, and movies involve you being away for a very long time. And so I didn't really venture into movies as my main career. But I think the opportunities now is not as much as it used to be, but definitely I actually came up during a comedy boom in South Africa. And over the last 20 years, from the time, that we had freedom, that we had our democracy, comedy definitely grew significantly, and there was a lot of opportunities for people. And it worked out very well for myself. But I never had the opportunity to take a big step overseas yet. I hope that I will be able to do that, in the next few years when things open up and my kids are a little older. But I decided I'm going to sort of, take it slow and be patient. But I will make attempts to do things overseas, when I have the opportunity. Yeah. And luckily, comedy can be an old man's game. It can be, you can continue to be funnier. You can continue to be funny for a long time, It's not something that stops. In fact, you actually get more funny as you get older because you become less inhibited. You say things. Also, if you're an old person, people are more forgiving of what you are saying and you're more vulnerable. So it does become, you do get funnier. It's not over.
Yeah,
People can be funny until very late. Like in fact, originally comedians were predominantly old people, like Bob Hope and that time. Those guys, they were generally old guys. And then with Eddie Murphy, comedy became a bit younger and more rock and roll. And but now it's still, you have young famous comedians and older comedians.
Okay, so next question. What is your comedy reference? Can be someone old, new school, old school. Who is he?
Oh,
Who is she?
famous.
Yes.
My best comedians.
Yeah, what's your reference?
There.
Ah.
So that's Chris Rock. That's Jerry Seinfeld.
Wow.
My favorite. Some people say very different, right? But they're also very good friends. But my two favorite comedians, the most influential when I was coming up, Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld. I like all forms of comedy, and I go through phases of different comedians, of liking different comedians. But they my guys. Those two.
Fully understood. Okay, next question. Okay, so you went we broadly speak about the how COVID in a way affected you, what you already done to overcome this pandemic and carry on with your comedy career. What have you learned from COVID and all this pandemic for the last 2 years?
I've learned that we are vulnerable. I've learned that, we should always be grateful and appreciate a lot of the blessings that we have, because you don't realize how many blessings you actually have until those things are taken away. And a lot of my favorite things was taken away. Number one being my stand-up comedy, right? Stand-up comedy has been healing for me. It's been blissful for me. And I sort of, if you asked me earlier about regret, I regret not enjoying stand-up comedy more and my experiences more. If I knew what I knew now, I would try my best to be more present and enjoy the journey more. That's what I've learned, and what the pandemic has sort of opened my eyes to. I've learned a lot, but I think it's a very important message, and to be grateful and have more gratitude.
Completely agree. And tell me, with all this, how is in nowadays for you working from home? Because you got your
Yeah.
office at home. We have internet from home. Some people say, "Ah, I have nothing to do at home," but I don't know. But for you and me, it's like being at home. It's our offices now. So how do
Yes.
you normalize that in your mind that you need to work from home?
Well, Likia, I still think you need a routine. A routine is very, very important because you need structure. You need structure, something holding you. And creating that routine is a difficult thing. And especially with my family, because we all together. Just for example, when do I pick up the phone and engage with social media and things of that nature? Because things are accessible to you at any moment. So we're finding that it's important for us to create routines with our family, but it's based on our priorities so that you can live life in a balanced way. Because at the moment, because everything is available to us almost at any time, it's difficult to live in a balanced way, because you can sort of just get engrossed and drawn in to all the digital media, which is very powerful. I always tell people it's like fire, you know, and fire can either, make you warm and generate energy and you cook your food, but it can also burn your house down. And I think social media is like that, and the digital world is like that. It's something that is such a powerful tool, and it's allowed us to do many things. For example, like we're doing now, but it can be dangerous if we haven't learned how to control it.
Completely agree with you. The at the moment is how to run away from it,
Yes,
because the notifications, everything is just crazy, and
too much, too much.
the part of being present, being able to be with the family, being able to exercise, which is a very important thing that keeps us, focused, and that's a integral part of our lives that we needed to redesign in order to make our life in a better way during COVID, during
Yes,
this pandemic.
because a lot of people have mental health issues now. It's very difficult because the world has changed, and people are under tremendous strain because also we don't know when it'll end. There's so much instability and uncertainty.
Yes.
So our brains are tired. So a lot of times people don't realize your body can really help you with that. Like I do this thing where I talk about the 30-second belly laugh in the morning. Right, you just sit there, and there's 3 different types of laugh. You got a hee hee, a ha ha, and a ho ho. Right, and then for 30 seconds in the morning, you just go. Okay, and I do this. Can stop now. And just doing that for 30 seconds actually creates euphoria. Not only are you oxygenating your blood, right? You ensuring that your blood pressure drops, your heart pumps better. You're actually releasing endorphins, which is the body's natural painkillers. It's like free morphine created in very safe doses in your body. So it's something that you can just do and learn. And it's weird, it's a funny thing to do, but it can be so beneficial. There are some instances that people have spoken about people curing autoimmune conditions, just through, using laughter as a treatment. But in the same way with exercise, sometimes your mind can't, it's just completely exhausted, and sometimes just going for a run or a walk, will completely change your perspective, and your body can help your mind. Sometimes your mind needs to help your body, and sometimes your body can help your mind. It's all these little things that we can do and learn to do, but it's so difficult because there's so much information, there's so many things we can access, and we just need to learn how to use all these blessings to our advantage.
Correct. Completely agree. Okay, so what are your future business endeavors that you will be undertaking? You already talk about the wellness, the laughing therapy. What else? What will be
Yes.
your future ventures?
So my primary aim is to be a better comedian. So that would involve doing more comedy specials, and I think also performing with the best comedians. So so it's my aspiration to, obviously produce these comedy specials, right, which are also more universal, that people all over the world can understand, and also going to places, for example, comedy festivals, where I perform with comedians all over the world and sort of become part of the international comedy community, and hopefully get respect from comedians all over the world as a performer, and just trying to get better. I don't really have an aspiration to be more famous, but I do have an aspiration to be better at what I do. And that's sort of a lifelong sort of purpose and a journey, because you get better and worse and better and worse. It's just about growth. So that's my broad aspiration, to be better as a comedian, but at the same time do it in a healing way, and maybe developing the best medicine as a concept, as a movement, to help with people's healing, from a mental health perspective and a physical perspective. And then, from time to time, I'll do movies and maybe a couple of TV shows from time to time. But the stand-up comedy and the healing and getting involved in wellness initiatives, I think that's going to be my primary purpose. But it may sort of manifest itself in different projects. Sometimes more health related, sometimes more entertainment related, and sometimes a mixture between the two.
That's, yeah, I understand. Okay, so
like I've got a movie coming out called New Material. I'm coming out. It's a sequel to a movie Material that I did that's available on Netflix.
Okay, perfect. Oh, great to know that. I will definitely have a look out for it. Okay.
Have you seen Material? You haven't seen Material?
No, I don't. You need to send me that, please.
Oh no, you have to see it. It's available on Netflix worldwide. So just search Riaad Moosa Material. And so it will give you a lot of also insight into, stand-up comedy within the South African Muslim community. So it's not based on my personal life, but it's dramatized, based on my understanding and the conflict that exists with me having a background of my religion and doing stand-up comedy.
Okay, all right, that's very interesting. I will have a look. You guys also need to have a look. If you didn't see it, go for it, because I know it will be good. Actually, I will try to see it tonight. Okay.
Yes, check it out.
Riaad, another thing that I need to understand, which has to do with the comedy psychology of it.
Yeah.
What is the biggest fear of a comedian? Do you sometimes think to yourself that you are in front of a huge audience and people probably, judging you or judging the jokes and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, a biggest fear, I think you want the jokes to do well. But sort of you get sort of addicted and you start to really love the rush of the laugh and hearing people laugh. So it's like, I guess it's a risky thing, because you may like tell a joke, papa, and then it may be stressful, but when you can get them to laugh and you can elicit that, comedians really get sort of addicted to that. So my sort of fear is that I can't sort of continue to develop as a comedian. That's my fear. So I never want to stop trying to be better. So I guess if I'm going to be completely honest, maybe I have to stop doing comedy before I actually want to, without having sort of at least tried to do the things that I want to do. And to a certain extent, I fear that, comedy may not go back to how it was before the pandemic. But if I just use my my medical brain logically it should, when our immunity starts to sort of our sort of herd immunity starts to emerge, things should be more normal. But still, I do have a fear that it won't go back to that situation where I can stand on stage in front of thousands of people, and them laughing so I can hear it through and feel it through my body. So maybe I do have a fear that that'll happen. But, I'm going to keep on trying, and there are higher powers or there's, or the universe that may allow you to, do what you want to do or not, but I'm always going to try. And as long as I have the blessing of trying and continuing to try, I think I'm on that journey. Whether or not I achieve what I want, that's not up to me, but I'm going to try as long as I'm breathing and have the ability to do so.
Perfect. Thanks, Riaad. Riaad, another question is, I see many comedians that use profanity to put their jokes to people. For example, for me, profanity puts me off completely if you're trying to tell me a joke, or just to use the F word. For me, it's puts me off completely. So my question is, you personally, why don't you use profanity when you're saying something or telling jokes? And why sometimes comedians have to do that?
I'm not against it. Comedians use it because it's a shortcut to exaggeration. And comedy is about exaggeration. Being tired is not as funny as being effing tired. It's exaggeration, and comedy is an exaggeration, and it's a shortcut. A swear word is a shortcut to the exaggeration, right? And it's a shortcut to the emotion of the thing. So if you can exaggerate the emotion and exaggerate what you're trying to say with one word, that's why they use it. But the reason I also don't use it because it's not really how I speak. But also I don't really mind if people are authentic. So if comedians swear off stage and then they walk on stage and that's how they talk, then the authenticity is more important to me. Like a lot of my favorite comedians swear. Like let's say Chris Rock is one of my favorite comedians swear. Seinfeld, one of my favorite comedians, doesn't swear, but they're both authentic, so that's why I appreciate both of their humor. Although I, as a person, how would I be as a person? I don't swear off stage much, and then I go on stage and all of a sudden I'm if this, if that. Doesn't make sense. But if a little swear word comes out from time to time, as it does when I'm off stage, then that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. However, I'm respectful of who I'm performing for as well. So I try and adjust based on who I'm performing for.
Perfect. Okay, Riaad, we have two more questions, and this is actually a very interesting one, which is, have you ever thought about making your own courses on how to do stand-up comedy? Have you ever thought about that or not?
I've thought about it, but I don't know if I'll ever specifically do that. I may start talking about it more, about how to do it on social media, but I don't think I'll ever do a course because a lot of this is more of an apprenticeship. You got to go out there and you got to do it. That's where you learn. Stand-up comedy is a performance art form. It's about, how people react to it and how you communicate things. Because they're very funny comedy writers. Sometimes they're not good comedians. And sometimes very funny comedians, stand-up comedians, don't write jokes as well. But, they can perform things funny and they have a funny character. So stand-up comedy is about, having the willingness to stand up on stage and fail. That a lot of it is about that. Then you can give people advice on what to do, and you can I guess learn a little bit about joke writing and the setup and punchline and exaggeration and things like that. But predominantly, it's about performing stand-up comedy. So I don't think I'd ever want to do a course per se. But who knows? If I'm an old guy and I want to now try and impart my knowledge, maybe I will try and do something like that. But as far as I can gather, the main thing with stand-up comedy is going up and trying it and doing that over and over again.
I'm asking this because this show is all about entrepreneurship, and of course, in you, there's a big entrepreneur inside of you that made you come so far in your career. And congratulations for that. It's like I say, it's great to hear from someone with your experience to also, inspire other South Africans that wish to do the same, but they don't know what to do.
Yes.
And
for stand-up comedy, you essentially find a local stand-up comedy. These days also people make funny videos on social media, but it's very different to actually performing stand-up comedy, as a lot of these funny social media people find out. They can be funny and make lots of funny videos online, but then they perform stand-up comedy, they see it's a very, very different thing. So, you can learn aspects of stand-up comedy through social media. You can make a funny tweet and people may like that, and then you try that on stage and people may laugh or not laugh, because some jokes are funny written, but it's not necessarily going to make people laugh out loud. Everything in stand-up comedy is performance related, and it has got to do with you standing up on stage. And you can train, you can read certain books and so on and so forth. Like you're not going to learn. I can give you a whole lot of books on how to do push-ups, but you're never going to grow your muscle unless you're actually going to do the push-ups and do the exercises. And it's very much similar with stand-up.
Perfect. Final question. And now you gather all that knowledge, all that experience, and tell me, what advice do you have for young South Africans that would like to follow the comedian route or career?
So, it's a emotionally draining. It can be very emotionally draining. And don't get into it if you don't love it. Because a lot of people do stand-up comedy because they think, there's income in it. Like when we started doing stand-up comedy, there was no Trevor Noah. I had not done any big movies. We didn't do any major television shows. We purely did stand-up comedy for the love of it. So you need to have the love, number one, of the art form. And if you want to engage in it, so don't use it as a viable way to make lots of money. I think you need to get into business or code. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But if you love it primarily, right, there are ways to make money with it. Right? There are ways to make money with it. If you are able to learn the art form and become competent at the art form, there are definitely ways to make money at it. But you can also realize it's not like medicine, where I complete a medical degree, now I get my degree, and now I have an opportunity to work in the hospital, and generally doctors get paid this amount of money. No, this is not how things work with stand-up comedy or the arts. I've seen some brilliant comedians, absolutely amazing funny guys that don't make a significant income from this, and they do it for the love. And it's not because they're not amazing. It's just because they don't have something tangible that allowed them to have the fame with the comedy. Right? But generally, if you are a good comedian, you will get work. Generally, but it's not like because I'm so funny, I'm gonna it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be launched into the stratosphere. So primarily you have to do it for the love of it. And like I did a medical degree, so I can just tell you, like as from my experience, I did a degree and it did give me security. It did give me security while I actually pursued my bliss. And with my children, I would also want them, I may have to adjust my thinking here, but I would want them to have some sort of security. I don't know if it's going to be a degree, but just in terms of how they're approaching life, so that they can be successful. But it's a changing world, so it's difficult to know this. But if you want to get into stand-up comedy, primarily, have a love for it and try and keep getting better. And I know there's a lot of opportunities that have opened up in South Africa, and we had very, very few comedians 20 years ago, but now there are loads of them. And the industry is something that is needed. Laughter is definitely needed, and it's healing and it's therapeutic, and it allows us to deal with immense amount of stress. Predominantly, laughter is about survival. We can only laugh at something if we feel mentally that we have survived it. They say tragedy plus time equals comedy. When you're in a tragedy, you can't really laugh at something. Things are too soon. But after a while, people can laugh at the most horrible things, right? Because they've survived it. So laughter is definitely needed. And if you can be good at being a laughter practitioner, you may be launched into the stratosphere, and you may be hosting the Daily Show. But also the reality is you may be an amazing comedian who's just, getting by and doing well. So primarily you do this type of thing for the love of it.
Again, Riaad, thank you very much for your words of wisdom. Really appreciate it. I hope everyone that is watching this amazing podcast is taking notes also. I don't know if you would like to add anything before we go.
Stay safe. Stay safe out there to everybody. We're in a very vulnerable position at the moment, and I think I'd like everybody to be less judgmental of each other, because we all, feel under threat. People are feeling under threat, and I think people are judging each other a little bit more than we should. Try and be kind to people, and I pray that maybe in the future I can perform for you live in a real setting, so we can laugh about this horrible pandemic that we all went through, and we can laugh heartily at it because we've survived it.
Riaad, thank you so much. Okay, once again, guys, this was another amazing entrepreneurial essay podcast with the amazing Riaad, one of the biggest comedians here in South Africa. Don't forget to share, to subscribe, and destroy that like button. And I will see you in the next ZA Entrepreneurial podcast. There you go, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this amazing podcast. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and destroy that like button. And I will see you in the next LivinginSAtv podcast.